Hi, this is Ken from Rocket Family KML. I'm going to go over something that I've seen in the threads lately, and that's engine retention, motor retention. A lot of different ways to retain motors in your rocket when you're flying it. This is going to be for your lower and your mid-power motors. High power is a whole different ball game, and we're not going to delve into that because it's so many different ways you could retain high power motors that we're just not enough time to do it. All right, starting off with, we're going to go with the easiest one, and see this on the Ready to Fly kits from Estes, where the motor is literally just inserted into the bottom, and it has its own little retaining ring as part of the rocket. It's screwed on, and now the motor is retained in the rocket body. So that's a real easy way to retain a motor in a rocket. Another way is what we call the engine hook. With an engine hook, let's grab one here. You're using an engine hook or a hook to go over the motor of the rocket. This is my Estes Astron glider. And all you're doing is you're using that hook to hold the motor in place. So you slide your motor in and the hook snaps over. Now, in this case, you can look and you can see that hook's a little loose there. We don't want that to pop open and the engine to be able to eject itself out. So what do we do to prevent that? Well, we can take and put a rubber band around that to hold that clip on. Or we can take a piece of tape. And we can just wrap a piece of tape right around that motor and hook. And now that hook can't pop off by accident. If you're worried about marring your finish, you can use blue tape. And that'll work fine. So that's using an engine hook to hold your motor in. Then there's the friction fit. Friction fit is literally that. You're using friction to hold your motor in place. So we take a motor and we put tape around it and we shove it in the body tube until it slides in with reasonable resistance so that it's not going to come out easy, and you really have to pull to get that engine to come out. And that's going to keep the engine from popping out when you have your ejection charge. Now, this is all these methods so far are based on the fact that you have an engine block preventing the engine from going any further forward. So that's another method. Now we're going to get into the funner ways of doing things. You can do motor retention with, I'm going to use just a body tube here because it'll be easier. Plain old masking tape. Let's say this is our entire rocket, it's 12 foot long, whatever, and we're going to put the motor in there. Well, if I don't have an engine block in because I want to be able to use bigger motors, possibly, let's say this is a 29 millimeter motor, I want to use 29 millimeter 6-grain motors. I can't do that. I have to put an engine block in there because it's just going to go too far up. So how do I have the ability to do that now? Well, we just take and we wrap tape around the motor, and we're going to make a tape engine stop. This is going to act like a thrust ring, and it's going to take the pressure off the engine and put it onto the body tube. So now I put that on, and I'm going to make that tape the same diameter around as the body, and you just feel until you've got enough tape on. Now that engine can't go any further up, but what's going to keep that engine from flying out on ejection? Same thing, tape. Now we just take a piece of tape, and this is why you build this tape ring on the motor out to the width of the rocket. Now we're just going to go around the rocket engine and rocket, both of them one time. Tear it off. Now that engine is not coming out of there. That is in there good. It is not going to come out of there. That'll work fine for most of your black powder motors. You can use it with some of your AP motors, although I don't suggest doing that with AP. You can get some rather energetic ejection charges with AP, and that causes its own rash of troubles. Now there's another method for retaining motors, and this is when we start getting into the 24-29 realm. So I've got the US Rockets F with D pods. I use two methods of retention on this rocket. The D's go in and get a piece of tape. I do a tape ring around each D motor, and then after I've built that tape ring up, I use tape around the motor and the tape ring to hold the motor in place, and that keeps my 4 Ds from coming out. I have here the Estes 29mm motor retention system. This will work with your Cesaroni and your Aerotech motors. So it retains the motor in there. Well, it also comes with a D conversion. So you can do this, you can build your own conversions. This rocket can fly with a 29mm and 4 Ds, or 4 24mm, or I can fly it on 5 24mm motors, which I have done multiple times and gotten some great flights out of it. How do we do it? Well, using the retention ring, I built a small tape ring that acts as my block. So now when I slide it up, make sure I've got nothing blocking there. So now when I slide it up, it's going to hit that tape ring and it's going to stop. And that tape ring is wide enough to let the screw for the motor retention come on. So now I have to do nothing to hold it in place. If you're an owner of an Apogee Aspire like me, or you don't want to put a motor mount on your rocket, you can make this tape ring a little bit bigger. You can see where I have it marked here. That's how I originally planned on flying it until I found out how inexpensive these motor mount retainers were. And you just wrap the tape around just like you did with the D. You slide it in. The tape is wide enough. You slide it into your tube, and then you're going to tape this into the main body tube. So you can tape your adapter in just like if you were doing my Apogee Aspire. The 29 to 24 conversion part slides right in. It has tape around it. It stops at the body tube, fins, and then I just wrap tape around that and it holds the motor, and the motor's taped into this. So we would tape the motor in, do a thrust ring around this, tape that in place, slide this in, and then tape this in place. So that's another fantastic way to hold motors in. Believe it or not, they will hold. They won't pop out that easy as some people think. It takes a lot more to push through the tape that way. Your nose cone's going to come off first unless you really, really have a stiff nose cone. So that's motor retention. A lot of different ways to do it. Friction fit, motor clip, and using tape as thrust rings, and using tape to hold your motor in. So friction fit them in. So hopefully this will clear up some questions on it, and we'll see you on the next video.